In terms of today's session, we are startup session number 5. We're talking fuel and fire, the mindset behind scaling a business. And we're really lucky to have 3 wonderful coaches with us that have spent many years working with founders from all different backgrounds. And we are looking to have a broad-ranging conversation about what it is to be starting businesses, running businesses, building businesses, growing businesses. In terms of that, give you a rough heads up on where we're going with it. We're aiming to start off with a little bit of a warm-up. I'm going to bring them in gently into the room. So we're going to find out a little bit about them, first of all. We're then broadly going to speak about resilience, fear, and growth. We are going to talk about the dark side. I was clearly being a bit theatrical when I was making these notes, wasn't I? The dark side. But we're going to talk a bit about burnout, and if you're out there trying to run a business, it is tough. So we're going to get some very practical tips about what that might look like and what we can do about it. We're going to talk about ritual, beliefs, and inner game. This is one for me, actually. I think I like a little habit. So we're going to talk about some sort of rituals and things like that help, or we've found to help founders that you've worked with. We're going to talk about coaching and blind spots. It's always good to talk to coaches about coaching, I think. So we've found a good topic there. And then we're going to finish with a few quick fire questions, and we'll read the room. We do want it to be interactive. So towards the end of the session, feel free to put your hand up, and even if there's a burning question halfway through, we're all friendly. We're all friendly. We want to have a good time. So in terms of that, very, very quickly, I'm Dave. As already mentioned, I've been working on this new community with Jess that we're building together. In terms of my background, worked in tech for a long, long time, but I've spent the last 15 years running my business Data Idols and also growing community. So I'm definitely, like all of you in the room, looking to take some tips from these wonderful people. I'm lapelled up, mate. I don't know, it's like, I'm lapelled up. So I'm going to fire down the line, if we don't mind. I'll start with you first, Jen. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jen Smith. My business is called The Curious Mentor, and I've been self-employed since 2009 when I started a business by accident. It was one of those circumstances that somebody offered me an opportunity and the word yes came out my mouth before thinking about anything through it. And I've managed to grow that from a business by accident to a digital marketing agency to a big pivot to become a coach and mentor almost full time. Still do the odd bit of digital, but only for people I like. I've had a very wiggly career through lots of small businesses and a late diagnosis of ADHD and autism, which threw into the mix with a hidden disability as well. So my special interest is really coaching with founders. About 25, maybe more % of founders are neurodiverse and or disabled. And so it's an amazing space to be part of that, finding out what needs to change and how we can do it better.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Now on to Kit.
Good evening. My name is Kit James, and I run a private coaching business called brilliantly Kit James Coaching. I coach founders, CEOs, leaders, high net worths, people of influence who are either already successful or well on the way to being successful. My clients would say that working with me is not for the faint-hearted. I don't sugarcoat things, but it's always done with care and with the client's best interests at heart. I think my clients tend to be brave people, and they tend to be people who really won't compromise. Success is not a kind of something that might happen. Success is going to happen. It's just a question of how and when.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kit.
Down to Claire.
Hi everyone, I'm Claire Corazan and I'm founder of Imagine Beyond. And ever since I was a teenager, I've always been utterly fascinated by why we do the things that we do. And I've been on a lifelong quest ever since then to understand people, psychology, neuroscience, and over the last 25 years of my career, I have combined creativity, technology, and people, and I call it the trifecta, those three aspects. And right in the center of that is the entrepreneurial mindset. And I've been a coach since 2012, and I love working with founders and entrepreneurial leaders, and that's a lot of who I work with now, founders and leaders. So thank you
Amazing.
for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think to keep the framing going, you've obviously all spent a number of hours working with founders, and I wondered whether there was a part of the founder journey that you think or you find most people are perhaps least prepared for. Are there some trends that you pick up on when people first come to you? And I'll maybe come in reverse order this time. So I'll maybe start with you, if that's okay, Claire.
Yeah, thank you. I would say the highs and lows is probably the thing I've experienced myself as a founder, but also having worked with lots of founders over the years. The highs are phenomenal. They are, you're jumping off the roof when a client says yes to something or a project kicks off or you've got some investment, and it's the best feeling. You feel like your chest is all puffed up and, things couldn't get any better. But the lows are really challenging to deal with. And that, I think, is one of the hardest things. To your point around the inner game, so much of that inner narrative in terms of what we say to ourselves and how we can get stuck in that sometimes. And I know myself, I certainly can as well. Being able to get that perspective and just talk it through can be really helpful, especially with a coach, because we will help you reframe, help you see things differently, challenge your beliefs and assumptions, and hopefully help you to move through where you feel right now into a better place. And if we think about how the mind works, when we have a thought, it impacts our emotions, that impacts our actions. So everything is impacted by what we think, what we feel, and how we act. So those three things together are certainly what I have seen and experienced personally and in my coachees around that inner landscape. And the highs and lows just amplify that. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
Well, first of all, I thought Claire gave an extremely good and full answer, and I agree with everything she said. So as not to repeat what she said, I think I would home in on something which I suspect will resonate with some of you in this room, which is the old adage that what got you to here won't get you to there. So I work with a lot of founders who are probably not completely fresh out of the box. They've had some success. The business is probably, could be anything, but probably bringing in sort of over £1 million in terms of sales or revenue or whatever, and they think, oh, this is great, we're on the way, and they're beginning to employ people, and they've started off a business, and they've done everything. They've ordered the coffee, they've been the sales guy, the finance guy or girl, and suddenly they have to let go, because to scale a business, you cannot carry on as normal. And for founders, and no disrespect, because I'm one myself, so I can say this, we are almost always control freaks. And it's very, very hard to let go and delegate, because you think you're really much better at ordering the coffee. And if you're not very careful, you end up doing things which means you're very busy, but they are not the right things. And certainly it's something I spend a lot of time with my clients saying, that's great, but how is this growing your business? That's great, but is this what you're supposed to be doing? That's great, but what is your role for this stage of the process? And there's more than two. There's different inflection points. And you have to be different people at different points. And part of what a really good founder will do is recognize that maybe they're brilliant at going from 0 to 3 million, and they should then put in somebody else to do the next bit. But a lot of people just carry on and think that's what's going to get a business bigger and better, and it doesn't.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I tend to work with people who are right at the beginning of their businesses. Some have reached that sort of scale, but the majority are a lot smaller than that. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls is that you don't know what you don't know. And that element that we can tell ourselves lies, and our brain's very good at trying to keep ourselves safe. So we stick with what we know. But when you don't know what you don't know, it's incredibly easy to get stuck. And you talk about the first 3 million. Sometimes it's the first naught to £10. And I remember sitting in a course with somebody saying it's very easy to double a pound. It's very easy to double that. But when you're doubling from 1 million to 2 million, that's when it gets really, really tricky. But equally, it's very tricky at the beginning because you're going into this world full of what I call the should monsters. You should be doing it this way. You should be doing it that way. Everybody else seems to know better. And because you don't know where to go. So it's very easy to get stuck. And the joy of working with somebody at the beginning of their business experience is that you can help them work out what's best for them. So that's
Perfect. 3 very, very good answers there. I think already it's clear running a business is hard. And it's nice to, I think, be talking and sharing these tips already. So really, really, really helpful. We've talked there about highs and lows. We've talked about letting go, and we've talked about don't know what you don't know. I do think, regardless of when you're starting and whoever you are, there may be an element of fear in terms of what you're doing. You may know that you feel fear. And I think in terms of that, I'd be really intrigued to get a vibe from you in terms of what role does fear play in growth? Does it play a role? If it does, how should founders or future founders manage it? And again, I'll maybe come to you first, Claire, because I know briefly in the green room you did touch on this when we were talking before. So
Brené Brown says a quote: "There can be no growth without discomfort," and that is so true. And when you think about the comfort zone, how that feels like a really nice place to be, just outside the comfort zone is the panic zone, where we think, oh shit, I don't know how to do this or what I'm going to do. There's a lot of uncertainty that feels very uncomfortable. And so we can often retreat back into that comfort zone. But that, as we know, is where the magic happens. In that place of discomfort of not knowing, that's where we're able to unlock our potential, learn new things, grow in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And if you think about how the brain works, the brain is 2% body mass and it takes up 20% of our energy. So anything that it can do to try and conserve energy and keep us in our comfort zone, it will naturally want to do. So it takes a lot of kind of working against the tide for us to step out of the comfort zone. And when it comes to fear, obviously we just want to retreat back into the comfort zone because it feels comfortable and a nice place, whereas just outside the comfort zone. And I had somebody say to me many years ago, Claire, why do you always want to do the hard things? And I'm like, I don't know. I just enjoy that kind of growth process.
My biggest fear is being comfortable.
Yeah, well, that's a great insight.
Bloody life, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, and you're never going to unlock your potential if you stay small. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, great.
I think, again, I agree with all the above. One of the misconceptions about people that are successful versus people that are not is this: people that are not successful assume that people that are successful don't feel fear. It's an absolute myth. People that are successful, Exhibit A over here, will do it regardless. That is the difference. And it's a lazy assumption from people, like, oh, he's all right, he doesn't feel fear. Yes, he does, or yes, she does. but they do it anyway. And part of the role of a good coach is they will challenge the hell out of you. And when you come into the session and say, I'm really sorry, I haven't had time to do whatever the work was from last time, I normally say something really like, bullshit, what's really going on? But I've been really busy. Okay, what have you been doing? Oh, I've replied to 7,428 emails this week. Okay. How has that helped you grow your business? And we all do this. It's not, this is, believe you me, I'm a specialist at it. My own coach calls me out at it.
Yeah, mine too.
But the point is that if you want to succeed in growing a business, it is tough. It's hard. Anyone that tells you it isn't is either completely fantastical or just hasn't got a clue. But the successful entrepreneur, and I do agree with you, sir, that there's a piece that some people are just, it's almost like, I want to be uncomfortable. But there's a lot of people who are successful entrepreneurs that don't want to be uncomfortable, but they are prepared to do what it takes to get there anyway. I always remember when I was when I set up my coaching business, having done a 30-year career in property, I changed tack age 50, and I set up a coaching business, having done a great deal of training. And I had my own coach, and I was doing my first post on LinkedIn, and I rang him up and I said, I've been looking at this all afternoon and it's all just terrible. And he said, there are 7 billion people in the world, Kit, there are rather more now, and they can't all be your people. So why does it matter? But we all have filters. We all have things that we worry about. What do people think of us? What happens if, and all of that has to be put to one side in the pursuit of excellence. And fear, anybody that says fear doesn't play a role in success or in building is for the birds. It's massive. But the courage, and that's why one of the things I say in my on my website things is the bravery and the courage is what is needed, and that's what makes the successful entrepreneur.
Perfect. I'm going to add one little extra bit in for you as well, Jen. So when we're talking about fear, I think we're talking about when people are first starting, there's the unknown, there's the fear. And I'm going to also add in potentially a bit of imposter syndrome and stuff like that as well. So again, combining the two, I'm going to add in the imposter piece for yourself. Do you find
happy
that?
days.
Yeah.
I like talking about imposterism. The first thing that I say with imposter syndrome is that it doesn't deserve its capital letters that we give it. It is not a syndrome. It does not have a medical background. It does not have any form of medical thing. So if we take the capitals away from it and take its name away, it's just a sort of thinking. And the reason that we experience what we call imposter syndrome, one is we experience imposter syndrome because we've been told that's what it is called, and it's a great way for people to make money from you. Tap into your insecurities, pay, and it'll all be magically fixed. Imposterism is literally us making comparisons, and it is because we have the cognitive ability. It means you're smart. It means that you've got enough cleverness in you to be able to make a comparison between you and somebody else. And there's generally 2 types of people that don't experience it at all. And that is frequently people who aren't smart enough to have the cognitive ability to make those comparisons or see the cause and effect. And the other one is psychopaths, because they literally don't care. And those studies have been done in prisons. So in terms of imposterism, it is just a way of your brain thinking that you have the skill to compare what you're doing against somebody else and make a decision of whether you're going to lean into that discomfort and the fear or whether you're not. And one of the challenging things there is that our brains aren't evolving as fast as the world is evolving around us. So our brains are still trying to keep us safe from a very, 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 very long time, cave dwelling time ago. If you think how much has changed in the last 125 years, we've got antibiotics. That basic level. Women have the vote. There is so much. We're in a technological revolution now There's no way our brains can keep up with that. So the fear is brilliant. Our brains want to keep us safe, as we said. We want to save those calories in case we need to leap into fight or flight mode, in case we are attacked by the rampant pride of saber-toothed tigers that are strolling around London town, which actually we're smart enough to know aren't there, but our brain still wants to protect us from those. So I'm going to say, in terms of imposterism, it is just a thought process, and that is all it is. It is a thought, and it's up to you, and maybe with the coach, to decide whether that thought is worth your time and the energy from your brain, or whether you want to put the effort into moving that energy that from your prefrontal cortex with that supply of glucose and oxygen, whether you want to put that into something else.
Amazing. Love it. Thank you very much. One thing that jumped out there when you were like, I love discomfort, and it's like, that's what being a founder is and stuff like that. One of the questions I had here actually was talking about resilience and being a founder and dealing with the discomfort and stuff like that. And the thing I would like to know or get your opinions on is whether that's something people are born with, or whether you've experienced in some of the people you're coaching that it can be a learned behaviour in terms of resilience and bringing this type of stuff out. And I'll maybe come to you first, Kit, on this one, if that's okay. Do you think resilience is something we're born with as humans, or do you think it's something that can be learned?
Sorry, I just want to add another thing so that you can also cover in that answer. Which
Oh,
we
yeah,
did.
right.
I'm sure you would have thought about covering it later. Nevertheless, about the self-doubt, right?
Yeah.
The ebbs and flows of, sometimes feeling very confident and sometimes very early stages,
Yeah.
The self-doubt, and if I try to overcome it and then try to get forward, how does it tie up with the failing fast, right? If you go on to your wrong path, these two things always conflict. The resilience probably will also answer that.
Okay. I think the first thing to say about self-doubt, self-confidence, sometimes self-worth, depending on the client, is it comes into every single coaching transaction in one shape or form. Sometimes it's dressed up, sometimes it's not. So I think a lot of this is about acceptance. It is normal to feel self-doubt. That doesn't make you weak or somehow less than. It is normal to have imposter syndrome, and I thought Jen explained that really well about sort of imposterism. Explained that really, really well. The issue is not the fear. The issue is not the lack of self-confidence. The issue is not the imposterism. The issue is what you do with it. So we are not our emotions. So if you wake up this morning and you feel really anxious and you feel really like, oh, everything's going to hell in a handcart and the business is rubbish, the problem is not that. The problem is that you engage with it. So if you can learn to step back and with a very light touch, oh, I noticed today I'm really anxious. And then rather than engaging with it and then maybe getting really cross with yourself, I shouldn't be anxious, I've done this thing before, whatever it is, the business should, instead of you just say, right, I'm just going to make that call that I've been putting off, or I'm just going to complete that piece of work, you'll notice a couple of hours later you're not anxious. But if you get engaged with the anxiety or you engage with the lack of self-confidence, I mean, look, confidence is always going to ebb and flow. And one of the things I would say about confidence, which a lot of people get wrong, is they say, I'll take that action when. So I know I'm not feeling very confident today, so I won't make that call. Well, standing at the confidence bus stop, waiting for the confidence bus to turn up is a waste of time because it never does. What builds the confidence is making the call despite your fear or despite the fact you're feeling a bit, unconfident or a bit, unsure of yourself that day. And the more you do that, and if you think about, go back to when you were a child, and some people will have, got onto their bicycle with stabilizers and off they went. Some people fell off 400 times. Some people fell off 4,000 times. But probably everyone in this room, at a guess, can ride a bicycle now, but you couldn't when you started. So honestly, part of it is just accepting that you are normal by not feeling confident. Now, on the point about resilience, and then I'll stop talking. Interesting question. I would say a bit like some people are naturally more talented at X or Y. Some people have a natural ability for resilience, and I think coaching in particular can help build that. It is closely related to accountability. It's an ability to deal with difficult things, to Claire's point about being outside your comfort zone. So I don't think some people are born with huge resilience and some are born with none, but I think there is a sort of spectrum, if you like. And I think resilience is absolutely essential to anything. And I think there are generational pressures of certain generations right now that are struggling because they lack resilience.
That's because it's been trained out of them.
You said it. I completely agree.
My one tip for anyone building resilience is try working in recruitment. That helps really quickly to build resilience. So there is a question at the back. Come on.
It was just in regards to the whole approach to fear, and like I'm going to make sweeping statements here. Like I feel like founders nowadays are moving away from like a generation of survivors to ambition. So we're driven by ambition to be founders. And the concern I was wondering is like, is this idea, is it a prerequisite to have adversity for growth? Because it sounds like we're talking about like you don't grow unless you put yourself outside of the box. But then, in a sense, is this a single story bias in the sense that we are aspiring to people that talk of their adversity and creative growth? Because could we potentially be going into a trap of doom seeking for that is being masked under the idea that we are growing because we are looking for problems where potentially like really just like growing in?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that question. And I think having an entrepreneurial mindset, you naturally will see challenges and opportunity when others see problems. So I think there's definitely that move towards and that motivation to unlock opportunity through seeing the world in that way. So I think, does it mean that you're always in that place of discomfort and sort of glorifying that? I think no, but the mindset is as of such that you naturally will look for opportunity when others see problems. So there could be that duality in terms of the way that we see the world. Yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of what came to me when you were.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, it lines with what I'm thinking because I was kind of scared of seeing it as such a binary situation of basically we had to be in places of turmoil
Yeah.
to see growth in ourselves.
Yeah, because that is quite toxic in and of itself, isn't it? And I mean, that in many ways is part of the path because there are a lot of unknowns, and in that place of unknown, that feels uncomfortable. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of not glorifying it and making it be the path, because it doesn't always have to be.
I think my experience of running a business, though, turmoil will find you. So as much as we don't want it, it normally does pop its head up now and again.
If you work for somebody as well.
Yeah.
It's not assume you're working for somebody.
Yeah. Amazing.
Walking down the street where everything goes perfectly to plan.
For sure. There is another question. Come on.
Let's just get back to the fear concept.
Yep.
What are the protocols that you would recommend to identify that it is in fact a fear, not something else that is stopping you from taking certain actions?
That is a great question. Who would like it?
You start.
Kick us off. Come on, Kit.
Good question.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to be sort of advertising coaches too much, but that is where a coach is really helpful.
But
Big-
I guess aside from the coaching point of view, obviously there will be a relationship with the coach. I'm thinking more about the protocol what you could do with yourself, where you could basically have, I don't know, a self-conversation or anything like this. I'm not a coach, so I would.
I think that's really hard. I think it's really, and that is why people like us exist. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't think there's a sort of magic trick. I mean, the protocol would be something like this. You know, meditate, take yourself into nature, do whatever you need to do to get yourself into a really calm state, and then listen to your instinct, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and listen to the first thing that comes into your head, because what we're very good at doing is we ask for the answer, and we don't like the answer, so we discount it and carry on. And that can become a reason to be stuck, and it becomes a justification when actually it is fear.
Okay. So going on from that, so thanks to Kit for starting off the question. When we experience fear, we are often going into that aroused state of fight and flight. And we are still programmed to send all the blood and oxygen that we've got spare and going from this bit of our brain here, which is where we make the good decisions. And it sends it to your muscles and to your heart to enable you to run away, stand really still, fight, flight, freeze, or play dead, or whatever your tendency is. So once you've got into that thought process, your body in no way usefully now is pulling blood, oxygen and glucose away from your head and your brain. And it can take up to 80% of the oxygen and glucose. So essentially, once you're into that state, my dear neuroscientist friend calls it slightly inappropriately, I'm aware of this. Basically, you're giving yourself a partial lobotomy. Your body, you can thank evolution later, is not enabling you to make a good decision at that point. So if you can be aware that you're experiencing that fear, that is the point where you can go, right, cheers, evolution. I know that my body is trying to get me ready to run away from a tiger or take on somebody else who's coming to attack my tribe. And the easiest way to resolve that, even if you can't take yourself off into nature or do what you do, is the most boring of 5 deep breaths. And it's really annoying because it works, because you are literally reoxygenating your brain. And by just giving yourself that space to do that can make a massive difference to how you then see whether it is a fear or a threat or something else that's going on. Yeah, go for it.
So something that has helped me and that I've shared with others is when I'm in that mindset, when I'm feeling the fear, actually just taking a pause, and the deep breath is really helpful because it regulates our nervous system, but getting a piece of paper and just starting on to journal by saying, what does the fear need? Or what does the anxiety need? And just writing that can be so helpful, because then you start to realize what it is that's actually causing that fear or that anxiety. And it might be something that's very easily solved. And it just gets it out of your head and your thought process and buzzing around, which it can be very unhelpful when we're in those moments. And physiologically, it can have an impact as well in terms of raising heart rate. Might not be able to think clearly. As Jen mentioned about the prefrontal cortex, that shuts down. So we're only operating on our emotional kind of center. So just taking a pause, getting a blank sheet of paper, asking the fear what it needs. Again, just helps you to identify what is the trigger point. And then you can put strategies in place to give your fear what it needs to helpfully alleviate some of that. And also getting perspective as well. To Kit's point about getting out in nature, I find that when I'm in that mindset, just changing my environment, so just going outside, 10-minute walk, just to get some fresh air, change my environment, change my perspective, that again is just so helpful.
Amazing. I'd actually just add one more thing to that as well, actually. And I think partly what you're asking was, is this a limiting belief on me, or is this like a valid fear? And whether that's talking to a coach, they'll reflect things back to you. I think that's the big job of a coach, is to kind of be that mirror. But you can also get the same thing from peer networks. You can talk to other founders. You can find a mentor. But I think for me, actually talking to other people that are in there with you actually sometimes is the thing that will just reflect something back to you a little bit. Please. Yeah.
So I'm a massive tech advocate. But one thing I will say is if you're going to put something into ChatGPT or other large language models that, we might do, it's always important to remember that it's only going to reinforce what you are saying. It's not going to challenge, or it's not going to give you a different perspective. It's just going to reinforce you and agree with you. So I would say, whilst these technologies are amazing, with things like that, we just need to be mindful that the goal of the large language model is to keep you engaged. It's not to prioritize relationships. So I just want to call that out because I think, we can often, use technology.
I would also add the word overthinking, be wary of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was a massive overthinker.
You had one more to add, Jen?
I was just going to add to that is that if you're working with colleagues, again, in exactly the same way as the AI and the chat GPT, is that it's really important that if you are going to share that, it's with people who aren't going to reinforce your beliefs for you in the name of resilience, in the name of, making you feel better, because sometimes you do need that critical friend or colleague to just go, really? And I'm just going to come back a little bit on resilience, right back to where we started, is that one of the things that I think about resilience is one of the strongest terms is that we need to know when to ask for help. Resilience is not about doing this on your own. It's not about being miserable. It's not about sucking it up. It's about knowing when to say to somebody, I woke up yesterday morning, freely admit, I was just pissed with the world. And the fact that I've got people that I can say to, I've just woken up ragingly grumpy. That's resilience. That's saying, but I need a little bit of accountability, or this is what's going on today, is much more, especially we've got young people coming through who either have very little resilience in our opinion, or have been taught an educational model of resilience, which is shut up and get on with it, which isn't going to actually be very helpful when they come into the workplace.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I was definitely being dramatic when I wrote The Dark Side, so again, apologies. What I would like to do, I think, is just very quickly touch on burnout. And I think in terms of that, I'm going to kind of summarise it all into perhaps one or two talking points from each of you. And then quite quickly, we'll get on to my favourite bit, which is talking a bit about rituals and beliefs and the inner game, and hopefully get some practical points and stuff like that. I think in terms of burnout, obviously running any business, there's a bit of a risk that you hit a wall at some point. I would love to hear from you if you've worked with founders that you would class as perhaps hitting that wall. What were the signs perhaps? What hints or tips did you perhaps have in those situations? So broadly speaking, again, I'll maybe start with you, Claire. What's been your experience of burnout with founders? Should we be super mindful of it? What does it look like? What do you advise?
Well, when we're doing things that we love, which we often are doing when we have our own businesses, there's a lot of energy and a lot of motivation and drive that takes us forward. It's like a forward-moving motion. I guess the point where it gets to burnout is when there isn't a prioritization of one's own needs. And I see it in myself, I see it with the people that I work with as well, that it gets to that point where you are really right at the very end of the empty tank, but still moving forward. And that can be very detrimental to health, but to decision making. We can be prone to distractions and lots of different things when we are overworking that prefrontal cortex part of the brain and we're not re-energizing ourselves or recovering or resting. And so I think knowing where that barometer sits in terms of what feels like great capacity, like I feel really good that I'm being productive and that I feel like I'm achieving great things, but also when that barometer sort of tips over and it is getting too much, knowing what that tipping point is and bringing in practices that can help fill that cup up. So it could be things like, you know that you've got a very busy schedule, it's going to be very demanding, but instead of on that following Monday, after you've maybe been traveling or whatever it is, going straight back into doing everything that you would normally do, actually just blocking half a day or a day to just go and do something that helps you to reset. So, you know, you might go out in nature, you might go to the spa, you might just go and see some friends or something that fills your energetic cup up that is for you. And I know it's really hard to do because when we work in our businesses that we love, we want to keep growing them and we're very motivated to do that. But I would say, think of it almost like a well-being bank account. The more that you take out, you have to offset with putting some stuff back in. And that stuff has to come from what energizes you. And that's, you know, obviously work is a great energetic source, but think about the other things that make up who you are, to really fill back up that well-being bank balance. That's what I would say.
In summary, the question was around whether I'd come across it, and the answer is yes, a lot. Have any of my clients burnt out? No, because I am very, very clear with them that the cost of burnout is and can be catastrophic. And people always underestimate it, because the trouble is when people are nearly in burnout, they're in a slightly frazzled state and they're not really listening, and they tend to just keep going, doing more of the same, almost like a kind of automaton. And I had a client recently who is he's just built a £50 million business in about 18 months. He's an absolute genius. He's a workaholic. He's a lovely, lovely human as well. And he finds it really, really hard to stop. And he was telling me some quite personal stuff about things going on in his marriage and stuff. And so I said, right, here's your homework. And being the incredibly hardworking guy he is, he sort of took out his notebook and he stood there with his thing. I said, right, you are to take a holiday and you are to turn your phone off and you're not allowed to take your laptop.
So hard.
And you would have thought I'd suggested he cut his arm off. But he did what I suggested he did. And I saw him last week and he'd come back from a week in Cornwall. He looked probably 15 years younger and he's only late 30s. He gave me a hug and said, you know, as if I'd come up with something that was real rocket science, I can't thank you enough. You've probably saved my marriage. I said, well, no, I haven't saved your marriage. You've saved your marriage. He said, I've reconnected with my wife. I've got so many ideas for the business. I'm so motivated. I'm so excited. And it sounds really trite and it sounds a bit kind of almost funny and a bit of burnout. It's not. It's really, really, really important. And I would say to each and every one of you, do not underestimate it. And in terms of the symptoms, because one of the questions, what are the symptoms? Sort of slightly frantic, talking very fast, not really sure what they're doing, but doing a lot of something. Probably quite hyper, quite kind of almost can't sit and relax. Probably, sorry, Kit, I've got to take this call while we're in the middle of a coaching session. Do you need? Yeah, a lot of stuff kicks in because the brain is just, it's like the engine's being over revved. And the problem is if you over rev an engine for long enough, it burns out, and that's what burnout is. So it's serious, it's important, and actually don't ever underestimate the power just for your business. If you can't do it for yourselves, do it for your business, of stepping away, doing something different, being off your phone, being off. You'd be amazed how things still work when you're not on your phone and you're not on your computer and people still doing their job. And you come back and they go, well, actually, it was much better without you because you weren't trying to micromanage and you weren't trying to whatever. So it's a really, really key and important point.
Thank you.
I've burnt out. I reached the point where I was trying to do something and I was trying to grow my business and I had a team and I didn't know what I was doing, and I reached the point where I could feed my children and get dressed, and that was it. And I let a lot of people down, and I was quite manic at times and absolutely vacant at others. It's not a nice place. I really wouldn't recommend it. It's really not fun. And I would also say, in the duty that we have as coaches, we are not medical professionals or therapists. And there are points where medical support, it certainly was in my case, was actually needed. People who are neurodiverse, neurodivergent, whatever you want to call us, I call us neurospicy, are more likely to experience burnout because our brains are working so much harder. So yes, I do work with people who have burnt out. And it's very much in the case of creating then an environment that you can work with your brain and yourself to be more comfortable with it. It's takes a degree of bravery to step back. But I too had a holiday this year. And I read, I think, 12 trashy detective novels. I can't tell you what happened in any of them, but I wasn't on my phone. And so, it is doable. But I would say that people who've experienced mental health challenges in the past, people who are neurodiverse, may be more likely to experience, and then working with a coach who can work with an understanding of that becomes even more important.
Amazing, love that. That brings me in a little bit to the rituals actually, and I think you started to touch on it there, and you've mentioned some good habits and stuff. I think for people that are starting to experience burnout. So, if possible, I'd love to hear if any of you recommend any particular rituals, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. And also, I guess, whether you've seen any small rituals with your customers, your clients, that have actually had an oversized impact. So
Okay, I'm going to go with one really easy one for everybody, and that is the power of a pint of water. This is what changed. Talking of which, yes, and you'll all go, oh yeah, I probably need to drink a bit more water. 2% dehydration can equal up to 20% drop in cognition. Water bottles, I can see it all happening. By rehydrating yourself in the morning, when you wake up, go to the loo first, whatever you do, having a pint of water can help set you up for the day. I have not missed mine for 4 years. I have tried very technical experiments, like trying to do Wordle before the pint and after the pint. I'm better after the pint, well, that's what I'm telling myself. But that, if you do nothing else, give yourself the opportunity to be 20% more present and making good decisions in your business by drinking water.
Love it. Follow that, Kit.
Yeah. Meditation. People get very confused about meditation, and I hear people saying, I'm no good at meditation, can't do meditation, don't understand, it's all really difficult. People overcomplicate it, as they often do, and they overthink it. Meditation is just really an ability to try and hold yourself in the present for a few minutes. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 25 minutes, it might be whatever. And the reason that this is important is it slows you down. So much of the work that I do with clients is counterintuitive because, I'm working with busy professional people. They're time poor. So slowing them down, that seems completely counterintuitive, but my goodness, it's important. So meditation, absolutely, and don't let yourself fall into the trap of saying you're no good at it. I have days when I meditate and my brain is all off in all sorts of directions, but there'll be other days it'll be more powerful and more beneficial. But the habit of it and the ritual of it is actually quite an important part. And then a slightly random one, a cold shower every morning. But you don't have to do that. It's just quite good. It's quite good actually for making you feel like you can conquer the world when you've stopped screaming like a baby.
A nice mix there. I like that.
And I'm going to build on what you were saying, Kit, around the meditation piece. So often we are in that beta brainwave mode, aren't we? Doing, we're doing, we want to achieve and all this kind of stuff. But what meditation or just having a shower in the morning or going for a jog does is it moves us from that very productive, higher frequency brainwave into an alpha, so a slightly slower alpha brainwave. And what's beautiful about getting into that brainwave state is that that's where we are able to connect the dots, where we have, we problem solve, we might come up with different ideas. And so the more that we can move from beta into alpha, the more we're going to be harnessing the incredible power of our brains to really think creatively and connect the dots in different ways. So that's what I was going to say.
I love it. I love it. I'm going off piste. I've just thought of a question that I haven't got written down, and I've got about 400 questions written down, so this must be a good one. I'm going rogue. It's building on the rituals and the habits and stuff like that. One thing you mentioned at the start, Kit, that resonated with me. I'm sometimes a busy fool. I'm like hammering away on emails. Everything's urgent. I've not prioritised. I'm just a busy fool. And in terms of that, do you find certain people that you see being successful structure their time in a particular way? Do they have structure to their week? Do they block out parts of their diary for focused work? Do they clear their emails at the end of every day? Do you see any habits in successful people in how they manage and structure their time?
Yes.
It's a binary yes or no answer.
Sorry, I couldn't resist it. I think there's a balance to be had. Different people. I mean, some people. I've got some clients who are unbelievably vociferously good about guarding their time to the nearest minute, and every hour of every day is blocked out. Personally, that wouldn't suit me. But do I, as an example, block out times for different workflows? Yes. I think also everything comes back to relationship with self. So if you don't one morning, spend the hour you were supposed to spend on developing the document, you don't want to ruin the whole day by going into a complete mini meltdown and self-criticism about it, because that is not helpful. I actually think that the answer to this is a bit more complex, in that I think the key to everything is kindness to self. And that may sound like a bit of a sort of soft pass, but we're all infallible. We're all fallible human beings, right? We nobody is perfect, and even the guy that is brilliant or the girl that's brilliant at an amazing, structuring of their workflows will have other things that they struggle with. And so it can. I have seen it become a reason to not progress, because I haven't done that because I've been doing all, so you want to watch that as a trap. But just being, so much of this is light touch, noticing, I noticed that every Monday morning I've got this blocked out and I never do it. So how could I do that differently? But if you descend into, I'm such an idiot because I never do it, then before you know it, you've kind of got through a whole way through a morning and you've achieved nothing. And I think that is very key to it. So yes, of course, there's lots of books written about good habits and whatever, and of course they come into it. But actually an ability to be kind to self, an ability to give yourself, not let yourself off the hook, but actually but not also berate yourself, is very, very important.
Yeah, I love to hear that as well, actually, because I must admit I'm definitely one to have the latest system or try the latest thing, buy the latest tech, organise my diary with some new AI app or whatever, and actually sometimes taking it back to basics by the sound of it is just as practical. Was there anything to add from you, Claire or Jen, there in terms of the structure?
To build on what Kit was saying around knowing yourself, know when you have your best energy, I would say, and structure your days and your tasks around that. I certainly find that can be very helpful, because there are, the circadian rhythm in terms of when we naturally feel tired and, when we naturally feel awake will be part of your rhythm. So look for ways to leverage that in terms of time. I think that can be quite helpful.
think context is also really important. So yes, your circadian rhythm, and it's going to be different at different stages in your life. It's going to be different in context of what's going on at home or in the office or the age of the people that you're working with. I too like shiny new things. Tend not to stick with them very well. I do, yeah. I like just. But again, it's finding what works for you, and there's a lot of people trying to sell us things.
Yep.
Because it's making them money by tapping again into our insecurities. Sometimes it's just somebody that you need, accountability. Somebody to just check in with at the end that, I really have to do this, so I'm going to do it. But, for people who are, I'm going to, just because this is where my area of interest is, disabled and neurodivergent founders, if you're working with chronic pain or fatigue or whatever, you need to be able to balance your day. And actually, again, right back to what Kid said, kindness to self, paramount.
Lovely. I wasn't expecting that, and I like it. It's nice answer. Makes a lot of sense. Taking it towards the coaching, I'm conscious of time, so we're going to have 10 or 15 minutes more. If anyone has got a burning question in them, stick your hand up. It's all are welcome. Talk about coaching. Be rude not to, wouldn't it? I would like to know what do most founders think they need coaching for, and what do they actually need coaching for? And I know this caught your eye, Kit, when we were chatting just before, so I'm definitely coming to you first for this one.
Well, my favourite is I need help with public speaking, because that always makes me think, oh, this is fun. I wonder what they really need help with. I would say, and I've touched on it earlier, I think one of the biggest things is this control thing, and allowing other people to do jobs when they will not be as good as you. But if you want to scale a business, you can't do it all. And I think there's a lot of trust in that. There's a lot of, from a coach's perspective, there has to be a lot of mirror and a lot of challenge and a lot of quite kind of gritted teeth coaching to just because they will be better than the person they've employed. But there's no point in employing the person if you're not going to let them do the job. And I think the other thing I would say, just as a sort of general comment in that space, is a lot of people start a business and it gets to a certain point, they're starting to employ people, and then they kind of scratch their heads and go, oh, culture. For a lot of people leaving. And one of my big things with founders is if you can get them at the right moment, because it feels like a bit of a sort of soft thing and a bit, it's not important, it's not driving sales. It's really important. If you want to build a good business, having the right culture from the start is much, much easier than trying to retrofit a culture which is bad and you've actually you've gone backwards because people have left and whatever. So I think culture is a big point, and a lot of founders don't think of it as being important.
Lovely stuff. Claire?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the leaders that I tend to work with come to me first around teams. So I've got this issue in my team that I need to sort out. But what often transpires is, the impact that they might be having on the team. And so there is some self-exploration and understanding. Well, it's creating that awareness of actions and behaviours, and also what's going on for them, how they're showing up, the energy, the biochemical reaction that they're bringing into the meetings that's having an impact on the people around them. We have mirror neurons in our brain that are triggered when we see the actions in others. So as leaders, if we're in a bad mood, not suggesting that anyone would be, but that energetically and from a brain mirror neuron perspective is going to have an impact on everyone around us. So often leaders will come in with team related issues, but when we unpick it and we look at what's actually happening, it's also about learning about their own impact on others as well. Fantastic. And what they can do. So was there a question over there? Oh, I thought you were going to say a question then, sorry.
Perfect. What about yourself, Jen? How have you found it? We've had culture and teams. So
for me, because I'm working with lots of very small businesses, it's often this sudden light bulb moment that they're getting in their own way, and how they can get out of their own way. So yeah, as I said, it's often very much a light bulb moment,
Mhm.
but you don't know where to go with it. The light's on, and that's actually dazzling in itself.
Yeah.
So that's, yes, and teams and culture and accessibility and neuro inclusion and all those things. But yeah, it's getting out of your own way.
Amazing. Perfect. Perfect. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this one. It's probably a little bit spicy, maybe. Is it? I don't know. What's the hardest truth you've ever had to reflect back to a founder? And the reason I'm saying it's a bit spicy, and now I'm waffling to buy you a bit of time to think about it. Is there anything that jumps to mind? Has there been for you, like with one particular client, a real wow? Claire's got her eyes shut. Kit is nodding. So we'll come to Kit first again. I'm not doing this on purpose, but there was a definite nod.
That he was not the right person to lead the business to the
Wow.
next stage,
Wow.
and that's a difficult conversation.
Yeah. And how did, if you don't mind me asking, how did that play out at that time?
Well, he didn't hit me. I had a long-term relationship with him. He trusted me. He knew, I think, on a very deep level, that I had his best interests at heart, as well as the business's. And so it was difficult for him to hear, and it was more than one session. It was quite a few conversations. But what transpired out of it was that the business flew, and he is really happy doing what he does, which is getting a business from concept to sort of first stage growth. And he's repeated that, and he's like, this is what I love.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, we all think that we should be doing it, but it's not always true.
Tough conversation. Love that. Claire?
Confirmation bias and how that gets in the way of seeing the reality. And so just challenging that in terms of a perception that this leader has of a particular person, and really drilling into understanding what the different examples of that could be, because we can get very stuck in our way of thinking about people. And so it was just trying to kind of reframe that and challenge that in a way that helped this leader to be able to see that person differently. And that was tough. That was really hard, because that perception and reality, but it helped the relationship. And using a method where you can put somebody in the shoes of somebody else and getting them to see things through their eyes was a very helpful approach to doing it. Perceptual, changing the perception and using empathy.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Claire. I've come to you last, Jen. I'm making your life very hard, aren't I, by having to follow up. We're coming to you first next time, I promise.
Okay. I think one of the questions I use very frequently is, how is that serving you to somebody? And that is a question that can result in a lot of feelings coming out. So there's one that springs to mind of that, reflecting back something that she'd said about herself. And that was what was going on. And she ended up writing it on a rock and throwing it in the river.
Oh, well.
And then she wrote some other bits and burnt them and sent me the video of her burning them. It was a really hard conversation, really difficult, but incredibly cathartic for her.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much. As promised.
We've got questions.
Oh, we have a question. Two questions. Come on, sir, at the back there.
3 questions.
Thank you.
How, as a founder in making, as a founder, how do you manage the flow of wanted and unwanted feedback on your idea, on your management style, all the aspects of your
There we go.
Yeah. First of all, it's great that you have a culture that encourages feedback, and I think that's always a brilliant place to start. The key thing is to know what you're going to take action on or not, and also understanding the intention of the feedback, because we can give feedback on lots of different things, and it might come from a place of good intention to help the person that's receiving it, but it also might come from another place which can be quite unhelpful and hurtful and all of those things. So that would be the first place that I would start. What's the intention of this feedback, and do I want to accept that and take it on board and grow as a result of that, or do I want to say thank you for that and do nothing with it? So that's the place that I would come from with feedback. But it's great that you have a feedback culture where feedback is coming in from a 360 perspective rather than just one way. Because often as leaders, we can be giving the feedback, but we don't get any feedback back. So it's good that you've got that 360.
I think a coach is helpful in that context, because they're in your boat, right? A coach should be able to give you incredibly direct, unfiltered feedback. I'm not sure you realize, but every time you talk, you sound really aggressive. Now, if you're in a good relationship with a coach, that's something that is helpful for you as a leader. In terms of the internal, it's an endless conundrum, this, really, because the danger for me is the people talk about this in a very kind of lip servicey way. Oh, we have it's a very open structure here, and anyone can give feedback to the CEO. It's fine. And then you discover that the CEO, has a tantrum every time, and no one says anything other than he or she is wonderful. So I think it again takes courage for a leader to be able to ask for feedback, and if he or she does not respond in the right way to that, then all you are doing is paying lip service to it, and all you're doing is going to shut everybody down. So it's a bit like if you're on a kind of group coaching, there'll be lots of people doing this, and then, hang on, there's the quiet person in the corner. Have we listened to them? And then they speak, and you're like, holy moly, they've made more sense than the rest of them put together for the last 4 hours. So it is about embracing and having the courage as a leader. I think I may have got this wrong, but I also think that you don't want this running commentary, because it's the easiest thing in the world when you're in a business. Oh, yeah, the boss just hasn't got a clue, but they haven't been the boss. It's hard being a boss. So I think that's also something so I think there needs to be an openness and a courage, but also it shouldn't be a running commentary, because otherwise you can spend a whole lot of time and some of it's not valid anyway. Does that answer your question?
Perfect. Anything to add, Jen, or should we
I'd
take
just
one
say
more?
approach it with curiosity. Of where's this coming from? I get a lot of feedback from my husband. He's worked for the same organisation for the last 36 years. It's well-meaning. Always.
And always helpful.
The intention is good. The curiosity says the intention is good. I'm ready to bury him under the patio at some times with that. There is, but a gentle curiosity can take you a very long way.
Love that.
One of the toughest things I've ever done in my life is to try to work out why somebody absolutely hates what it is that I'm doing. That was tough. So if someone really hates you, I would go find out why.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah, love that. You have a question, Dane?
Yeah. So as business owners, we tend to come from a particular place of, and have a special expertise, and often that's our comfort zone. And we often find ourselves spending a lot of time in that comfort zone because it's the thing maybe that we're good at, thing that we enjoy doing, and that's often just one part of all of what we really could or should be spending our time on. So my question is, how often do you find yourselves talking to your clients and telling them that they need to take that hat off and put a different hat on and do different jobs that are not their comfort zone? And how often do you find you saying the opposite, where you say, okay, we'll lean into that and either hire other people to do the things that you're not the expert in, or get a partner or somebody else to do those things? So, yeah.
I would say that with me comes very much as I would then say, do you want a coaching answer or a mentor answer? And you would get two very different ones in terms of my mentoring hat or my coaching hat. So my coaching would encourage you to lean into that and maybe talk about, instead of what you should be doing or what other people say you should be doing, what you could do and what you will do for the benefit of you and the business. If we banish should, it becomes a lot, and how much effort do you want to put into each one to make you successful? Mentoring wise, I might come at it and say, well, with another organisation that I've worked with, they got somebody in to do this and they flew. But I would hope that I would keep that very different.
I too ban should from my coaching. Anyone says should, not allowed. I think the first thing I'd say is you have an awareness around it, which is about 60% or 70% of the way there. I don't think there's a binary answer that, it does depend on the circumstance. But if you've got a leader that is naturally, and everyone is naturally comfortable and talented at one particular bit, but if it's a very key driver in the business, and I would actually ask them the question. I mean, it's not for me to tell people. I would say, right, so you have two choices here. Would you rather lean into your speciality? And if you do, you would probably have to accept that you're going to employ somebody who is going to be better at whatever the other bit is. Or do you feel more comfortable as the business owner upscaling your skill set on whatever the area is? And then I'd say, well, if you are more comfortable, what's the cost of the business of you getting up to speed versus the cost of getting an expert in? So it's not about us telling people, it's about giving you options and getting you to work this out for yourself. And your own gut instinct you'll know the answer. And should isn't in it. So what is going to, and then probably take you out of it altogether and go, okay, what is the best thing for the business? You don't matter, Mr. Founder. What's going to get the business to where you want to get it faster? And you'll know the answer.
I'm just going to build on that. And one question that I love to ask my coaches, just building on what Kit was saying, is if the business could talk, what would it say to you right now? Because that just helps to lift us up out of whatever it is that we're in and actually think through the lens of the business. So what's going to give you the highest probability of success? So if the business could talk, what would it say to you right now? You don't have to answer that, but definitely ponder on it.
He knows the answer, though. He definitely knows the answer.
Amazing. Oh, come on.
So yeah,
I probably a question to try to wrap up the evening. So I'm sort of like at a pre-seed stage, of starting business. My question is, how do I have the courage to take the headspace or the resilience, to basically take a break to avoid burnout, whilst I have that fear of I have a mortgage and a family behind me, and to sort of like wrap it up as well, would coaching help?
So I think I'd sort of refer you back to an earlier answer. So on the, the fear is completely understand. You've got a family, you've got a mortgage, you're under a lot of stress and pressure. If you burn out, you'll be in bed. Yeah. You'll be achieving nothing. And that is a greater evil, if you like. I think a coach would help, definitely. But I also think, just again, sorry to bang on, be kind to yourself. You've done an amazing thing. It's not easy, this. Everyone in this room is amazing. You're incredible. You're talented. You're actually very unusual. I know there's lots of you in the room, so it makes you feel like you're not. But to create anything, and it is about creation, right? You've created something. You had an idea. You've built it to the sort of pre-seed thing. And of course it's hard work. No one is suggesting you sit in the corner of a room kind of cross-legged humming. That's not going to... But yeah, again, burnout, it's never pretty. And you will literally lose control of your ability to make any decisions, or you'll make such bad ones, then you will guarantee the business will fail.
Amazing. Oh, we're cooking.
Just a related question. From your experience, how can you tell the difference between somebody that's approaching burnout and probably needs a break versus somebody that probably kind of needs to call it a day and maybe like leave the business or change their role?
Good question.
One of the most courageous things people can do is to realize it's over, or it should be over, or wrong word, no shoulds, but it's no longer, it's not going to, the dream is not going to happen, and that's really, 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 really hard. And I think as a coach, all you can do, and coach should be a deep and trusting relationship. Would it be helpful if I gave you some thoughts? Or I don't know whether you're ready to listen, but I have a couple of quite difficult questions for you. That sort of approach. Sometimes I've done it. It comes as a massive relief. It's almost like, oh, thank God for that. You've given me permission. But it's hard because you've given your life and soul and all your time, and relationships have been put on the back burner, and families and all the rest of it. Again, it's not binary. I would know in the room, but I can't sort of give you a binary answer here.
Amazing. I'm going to go rapid fire. I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to fire through 3 quick fire questions. I'm going to come to each of you, either like one word or one line to fire through. And then we're going to draw things to a close, and we're going to head next door to the bar if anyone would like to join us and get some free coaching, which is going to be good. So, in exchange for gin. Number 1. What is the most underrated founder quality? And I'll come to you first, Jen.
Humility.
Lovely.
Kit.
The most underrated self-awareness.
I'm going to say being opportunistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're like an opportunist. Yeah. That is good. Question number 2. We're starting with you, Claire. You've got more time to think, Jen. This is perfect.
Okay, go for it.
Something you used to believe about leadership that you now think is wrong.
That you need to have lots of expertise to be a great leader. I don't think that's always the case. I think you need to be able to make great decisions, be able to see ahead further than everyone else. And so, yeah, you don't necessarily need to have all of the expertise to be able to do that.
Perfect. Over to you, Kit.
Go for it, Kit.
That it's easy.
Yeah, what he said.
That was good. Right. Last question. We're all giving up our evenings to come and learn, so we all clearly like to learn new things. So my last question is, if you were to recommend one book, podcast, or person that has inspired you, helped you learn, grow, etc., who or what would you recommend to the room?
I'm going to go for a little bit of shameless self-promotion. So I would recommend the book Dose, 52 Ways to Create a Personal Prescription to a Better You, essentially, by Dulcie Swanston and Dr. Ian Price. And in there is a little bit about Digital Gen, which is my old business name. And that is the project. It's about stacking habits. It's 52 habits that cost either very little or nothing, okay, that you can create a personal prescription for more happiness, more growth, more productivity. And it is what has completely changed how I work.
Amazing. Great recommendation. Thank you.
The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, available on Amazon. Amazing book. Quite an old book. If you're looking for it, it's got a goldfish leaping out of a bowl on the front cover. And it talks about lots of interesting things, but it talks about upper limiting, which I think is a massively common thing with founders. So, where are you subconsciously, and our subconscious, we're back to this, the ego and the brain keeping us safe. Where are you keeping yourself safe, upper limiting, at the cost of doing what is right for the business? And that's a great book.
Thank you.
I would say the About My Brain Institute, which is where I learned about neuroscience in leadership. And that for me was a game changer in terms of understanding how the brain works and how we show up as leaders. Sylvia Demanio is the founder, and she writes a lot of stuff. So yeah, that'd be my tip.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Fantastic.
got one more
Oh,
for you.
come on,
I'm gonna
Jen.
get a sneaky one more, and that is for Small Business Britain, who provide a huge amount of free and funded training, workshops, networking, development programs, access to people who have been doing this for some time. I was going to say experts, but I don't think any of us would call ourselves experts. I said we'd call ourselves people who care deeply and are, you know, about helping other businesses succeed. But their ability to partner with people to give you the most amazing experiences is well worth tapping into.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And that does draw us to a close. So I'd like to say a thank you to Jen, Kit and Claire for giving up their evening to come and share with us. Round of applause. Round of applause.